Hi there, in today's video we are going to be talking about the 5 mistakes you could be making on your website. This is great for do-it-yourselfers or new websites and you want to make sure you're setting up the right foundation for your site. Or if you are rebranding or working with an agency or designer and you want to make sure that everything is going smoothly, this is the video for you. Before we get started though, a little intro. My name is Yasmin Robles with Robles Designs, and we create drill-worthy websites and brands for entrepreneurs who are hell-bent on taking over the world. We do this not just by creating pretty sites, which we do create pretty sites, but we do this with some strategy and a thought process behind it, because anybody can create a really nice site. They can even download a template for you and make it look snazzy, but they need to know what strategy is needed on the site. They need to know about user experience. They need to know about your goals as a business and what marketing you're going to be doing in order to make sure that the site is actually going to work with your business, not against it. So if you need any support, whether it is one-on-one service or you want to check out our course, anything like that, go to roblesdesigns.com. And without further ado, let's jump into the topic. So the very first mistake that you could be making, and I see a lot of this with beginner entrepreneurs, is when you are talking only about yourself on your website. And I get it, your website is about you, so it's kind of like you should be talking about yourself and hyping yourself up. But the truth is that people go there to your site. They go to your site in order to find out what you can do for them, not how cool you are, although I'm sure you're really, really cool, but they want to know how you can solve the problem that they're having. So let's say you are an accountant. What about your services will help me as a small business owner make my life smoother? Will it give me more time? Will it give me just solve a lot of the headaches that I currently have? How does your service provide a transformation? So really, when I come to your site or any other user goes to your website, they should be getting the answers to who you are, what you do, who you do it for, like who's your fave person or favorite type of client, and what does that transformation look like? So you know my problem, you've stated my problem. What is the transformation of me hiring you or buying your product? What does that look like for me? Is it more time? Is it if you sell water bottles? Is it that I stay hydrated? And what exactly does that mean for my life? So make sure you're not just talking about you, that your site is actually talking to the client, to the potential customer, and telling them all about how awesome your product is, but in a way that is going to be about them, not about you. Just a quick interruption, make sure to go to roblesdesigns.com/checklist, where you can download a PDF that runs through everything that your website needs to have, whether you are building a new site or you are trying to figure out what you're going to do for the next quarter, the next year. This is the perfect one. You can see if you're setting yourself up with the right foundation on your website. That is roblesdesigns.com/checklist. The next issue that I usually see on a website, especially if it was do-it-yourself, is that the text is not arranged properly. Usually what this means is that there's no real hierarchy between a headline, a subheadline, maybe a third bullet point headline, and then body copy and how everything stands out on the site. What I usually see with do-it-yourselfers, and I get it, you have your jam, you do what you do best. Websites might not be your thing, but usually what it looks like is that you have just literally copied and pasted a ton of stuff from your Word document, and it is like this giant chunk of a paragraph. There's no breathing, or I call it breathing space. There's no really pauses. So if somebody were to scan through the site, there's no way that they can just read a bunch of headlines and understand the gist of it. It's like giant text and giant blocks of text that make me remember like AP history class when I was in high school, which was a long time ago, but it still haunts me because there was a lot of reading, and that's what I hate to see on a website. So keep that in mind. And if you do have a lot of information, break it up into small chunks. Give us some bullet points, give us some just quick snippets of text that we can digest easily. And again, just break it up into different sections, into different topics on the page. And if you really are worried there might be a lot of text, usually we add the bulk of the text towards the end of the page, because by that point people are really invested in the page and with the information you have to give. They've passed a lot of those smaller amount of text sections, And so we kind of put more of that into the end of the page. It does help with SEO. Make sure that your text isn't overpowering, that it's not, when I land on your site, on your page, I don't feel like I'm being given European history homework, or that it's just a lot of reading and then I leave the site. Another issue that I typically see on a website is that people are just selling way too many things. And I have also done this in the past. It's just whenever you're really a startup business, you're trying to do all the things. So you might have like a course, you might be selling digital downloads, you might be selling all these things online, and you are also offering services. And depending on how much of these items you have, you might even have an ebook, all of these items, it gets a little confusing for the user, and it also makes it feel like you as the business owner are not entirely sure of where you want to go with the business. What I suggest, because I am not saying don't do all the things, what I suggest is thinking about your user, who is likely coming to your website, and what their number one goal is. So if you do have all of these things, but you're really promoting your one-on-one services, make sure that your course, everything else is still on your site, but it does not show up, it's not as in your face. Maybe it's down in the middle towards the end of the homepage. Maybe it has something on the tab up at the top, but it's not everywhere, because if I were to come in there for one-on-one services and I see all about your course, I might miss that you do offer these services, or I might just get confused and leave the site. You need to make sure you know what the number one goal is. So for example, us as a business, our number one goal is to get you as a one-on-one client. We can have courses, we have a freebie, we have all these things, but our goal is for you to contact us, to get to know us a little bit, and to hop on a call and become a client. So we do all of these different things. We have videos on YouTube, I do reels on Instagram, and yet you won't necessarily see a lot of that on the homepage or on the site. Maybe towards the bottom, but not necessarily up at the top, especially in the hero section, which is the topmost section of the page, that you want to make it clear of what your intent is there. So again, the biggest mistake is trying to throw everything, and it just looks like you literally took whatever leftovers you had in your fridge and you just threw it in a pot, and whatever happens, happens. Really, for a website, although sometimes that turns out delicious, for a website though, you want to make sure you have a goal. So my website will help me sell X, and then Y and Z are going to be supporting. So if I'm trying to sell X, that needs to be the majority of the site, and Y and Z would be the detail pieces. Mistake that I see people make a lot, especially when they are doing their own website, is looking at what's trendy and trying to apply that completely to their site. So let's say gradients, right? Gradients and rainbow colors are really, really trendy right now. You apply that to your site, but you haven't actually given a thought to your branding, you haven't given a thought to who your user is and what they like, and it's actually you are selling, let's say, financial services to really professional people who are very traditional, and yet your entire site is pink and purple gradients all over the site, and there's unicorns. This is obviously an exaggeration, but let's say this is what you're doing on your site, and it's really trendy and you want to do it. It's a big disconnect between your user and what they're expecting from your brand, and it's just it's a horrible hot mess. So what you want to make sure before you start adding any cool trends that are happening, and I understand because I am a designer, I am constantly wanting to add trendy things onto my own website, you want to make sure you ask yourself, is this really brand appropriate? So if you have brand guidelines, hopefully you do, from your brand designer, you got some brand guidelines. It's basically like a how-to of your brand colors, brand fonts, how it works. If you have all that set up, you can then go back and say, all right, I really like what they're doing with all of these gradient trends, but does that actually apply? Does that make sense for my brand? And does that make sense for my user? Will my user understand and love what they're seeing, or will they be taken aback by it? Are they more traditional and this is really not the way to go? Then you can, if you say, you know what, my brand, it works great, then you can apply it to your site. The thing to keep in mind with trends also is that they go out of style. They're trends. Sometimes they come back, kind of like scrunchies, but they might come and go. So you want to make sure that it is not so on that trend, that as soon as it leaves, your site looks outdated. So make sure that you are kind of thinking this through before it gets too trendy, because you might end up having to, in a year or two, completely completely rebrand the site because it was just too trendy and it wasn't really true to you, and you realize that your clients might even have been slightly put off by it. The last issue that I see a lot with websites, and especially do-it-yourself business owners and some designers, is usually going with your gut feeling. So just as a caveat, gut feelings are great. You know, I've made some really great business decisions going off my gut feeling. I've invested in some great people, and it turns out great. But when it comes to your site, what you really want to look at is the information that you're getting. So from analytics, from Google Analytics, Search Console, there's a lot of other tools out there for analytics. And if you're on Squarespace, even if you just have the little Squarespace analytics, which is not much, but you can still go on there and get some information. Heat maps, this is all the stuff that we do when we're rebranding a site. This is information that's needed in order to make calculated decisions, because your gut feeling might be telling you, I think that my customers think that my about page is the most popular page on my site. And then you go in and you revamp your about page, you add more stuff to it, and then in reality, maybe it might not be the most visited page, maybe your services page is. Or you might be, there's just things that you could be missing if you don't have those numbers, that information. You don't know if your SEO, organic SEO is working. You don't know if the content that you're creating, the blog posts, are actually helping your SEO or not really. You don't know if your ads have been working or not. You don't know any of that information because you haven't been tracking it. And gut feeling sometimes is great, but you want to back that up with like legit numbers, right? You want to make sure that it is actually going to work, or that it has been working, and you want to be able to say, okay, last 3 months I ran this ad, the 3 months prior to that I ran a different ad. How can I compare these two, or how can I compare it to last year's ad? How can I compare holiday this year to holiday last year and see what our numbers are telling us? Were we getting more traffic to the site? Or are we getting less traffic but actually selling more? What's the difference? Gut feeling might help, but it's not going to really help solidify those decisions that you're making in marketing. I just love numbers. So I say, don't go with your gut feeling, go with your analytics, go with your numbers, and make sure that you are tracking all this information on your site. If you do have someone like us as a recurring provider, we do send out the recurring reports. We have calls with you. We explain what's going on. We do backups, all this great stuff for you so that you can then say, all right, let me see that report from last year and a report from this year so far, and how are we doing? Are we getting better? Or should we do more content, more anything of the stuff that you need to do as a business owner to get more traffic? And how can you can see the real numbers in the reports. So essentially, don't go with your gut feeling, go with numbers. Let me know if you have any questions, or if any of that didn't really make sense. Put it in the comments below, any of your questions. If you want to get a free website review, which I will review your site and then pop it on to YouTube, let me know. I will put the link below as well. And if you want to download the free checklist, you can go to roblessdesigns.com/checklist for that one. And you can also check us out on Instagram at Robles Design Studio and see myself have some fun and make a fool of myself on Instagram, and that is at Robles Design Studio. I will catch you in the next video. Bye.